Hello, my name is Daniel Presses. This is the maze game for the midterm project for the Game Engine Design and Implementations course. And this is the DLL implementation. So starting off here in Visual Studio, we don't have that many functions that we actually export. Just one to reset the stats logger, to save the next checkpoint time, to get the number of checkpoints, get the checkpoint time by index, and to get the total running time. We also have a save to binary file and read to binary file functions that we will take a look at. So the stats logger class just has a lot of mirror functions from the actual exported functions. We have the reset logger, which just resets a vector of floats, as well as a total running time. We have save next checkpoint time, which just pushes back a new checkpoint time and sets it as the total running time. We have the get time from checkpoint index, which returns a checkpoint time from the list, the number of checkpoints so we can return the size of the list, and the total running time, which just returns the total running time. And then we instantiate a global instance of it here. Then our binary stats file is actually a friend class of the stats logger. This will be useful later when we look at the reading function that is defined here. But let's start with the saving function. We have a special string struct that allows us to take in a data as well as the length. And this is the type of string we pass into the save to file and read from file. The save to file just opens a file stream with out and binary. And then for each of the checkpoints inside the logger's list, we store it in with a C prefix just so that it's easier to read later. And then we, at the end of the file, we write the total running time, and then we close the file. For this to work, the actual output directory has to be already present. But once it is, this will be able to write to the file without any problems. As for reading, we take in the file name, open the file stream with in and binary. We check if it's good, and then we get the content out of it all at once, close the file stream. We reset the logger just to make sure any garbage values aren't kept in there. And then we start reading it line by line. If the line starts with a C, we know that it's a checkpoint. So we take the index and the actual time, we store the time in the running time list. And then if the line starts with a T, we know it's the total running time. So we read it and set that to the total running time. If neither of these are the case, then it's an unknown format, so probably a corrupted file. So we have a bool return, and if any of these checks are bad, we return false. Otherwise, if we are all okay, we return true, meaning that we have read the file successfully. Back in Unity, we can actually take a look at this manual plugin importer, as well as the stats logger class. We're doing a way more complicated process to get all the actual functions outside of the DLL, but this saves a lot of time when we actually rebuild the DLL, meaning we don't have to close Unity and reopen it again. This will actually load and unload the file when you enter in exit play mode. So our manual plugin importer has a load library function, a free library function, and a get procedure address function. The open library function will just return a handle to the actual library so we can keep referencing it and the functions inside. The close library function will of course close the library. And then we have this get delegate function that will actually get delegates for all the function pointers that we can get from get procedure address. The usage you will see here. So we have our DLL path here. This is relative to the assets folder. We have our string struct here. We marshal this first type as a long pointer string, which will equate to the const char pointer that we have on the C++ side. And then we have all of these delegates that do very different things. And then we instantiate an instance of each one. We have an in pointer to the actual plugin handle. This is what this is what the manual plugin importer open library will return. We have an init plugin function that tries to load the library and then get all the respective delegates. We have a shutdown plugin function, which will try to close the library and then set all the function handles to null, as well as the plugin handle to in pointer 0. In other words, null as well. And then we have a static function for each of the defined functions inside the DLL. All of the functions will have some sort of check just to make sure we can actually call it, and then we'll invoke the actual function. So the reset logger will reset the logger. The save next checkpoint time we'll actually take in a time update .time. This is the pretty format we saw in the other video. We'll actually convert it to a float and then pass that to the DLL. Get number of checkpoints. We'll make sure that it can get the number of checkpoints. Get time from checkpoint index. We'll check this index and we'll return a zeroed time if it can't find an index that is actually within the actual list. Get time from checkpoint index. We'll try to get a checkpoint indexed time, and it will actually check the index before it tries to access anything so we don't get any access violations, and it will return it in our pretty time format. Get total running time. We'll get a float from the DLL and then convert it into our pretty time again. And then our save to file function, we'll use our string struct. You can actually pass nothing to this function and it will automatically save it to output stats.dat. Otherwise, it will use the path that you gave it and it will save to that file. Just make sure you actually try, when you try to read from that file, that it actually exists as well. Otherwise, it's going to try to read from output.stats.dat again. Okay. When this stats logger will usually get attached to an object. When the object is awoken, it will init the plugin, and when it's destroyed, it will shut down the plugin. This means that the plugin doesn't last between scenes, so the actual loading and saving to files is very important for this to work. You can have a read boolean so that if the scene starts and you want to read from the file, you can do so immediately. This is useful for the end scene when we want to read from it and display the values immediately. Just to see it one more time in action, let's go to our end scene. So just a quick little demo again, a refresher from our last video. If we run the end scene again, you can see all the times have been loaded in. So from our last run, you can go back and show them again. This gets loaded in every time the scene is started. This actual stats logger has a default output /stats.dat, and we can read on scene start if we want to. Same here in the actual play scene. We'll output to this output/stats.dat file, but we don't want to read it in at the beginning of the scene, so we leave that unchecked. That's everything. Thank you, and thank you for listening to this presentation. My name is Daniel Presses. Good night.